Hey there friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to share my current favorite build in Remnant 2 for Apocalypse difficulty co-op content. And this has been excellent, and I've been using it with the Forgotten Kingdom DLC to find all the secrets, clear a bunch of new content, all that kind of good stuff. It really feels awesome in my opinion because it can do a bit of everything. It's got good damage, good ad clear, and great survivability as well. I really like using this, playing with randoms, especially if they are struggling with some content. I find oftentimes where they might be dying a lot, or they might be struggling to beat certain bosses, certain enemies, and clear certain areas. This is the perfect build to jump into other people's games. Plus, it utilizes a lot of the new gear that we have gotten, so I really enjoy doing that. I don't like using the same thing forever, so that's one of the reasons I really enjoy running this build personally. Now, this is going to be the Visionary Spirit of Pain, combining the Invoker as your prime archetype with the Ritualist as your secondary. As far as the skills, I am using Way of Keula as well as the Miasma archetype skill for the Ritualist. The gear I'm using is going to be the Disciple set, just because it looks sick and I really enjoy using it because of the visual mostly, but otherwise it is also a pretty solid armor set as well. Definitely recommend chasing that down. I'm using the Blooming Heart Relic with skill cooldown, skill damage, and moderation, although honestly you might be able to switch this out. I used it just in case because I can spawn healing orbs which will heal not only myself but also my allies, which is absolutely vital in co-op content when they're struggling to stay alive. As far as the weapons, I'm using a Monolith with the Maelstrom Mutator. This is my new favorite gun personally. I absolutely love it, and it feels like I can get my Sandstorm back very quickly with this build, which is one of my favorite things. I'm also rocking the Krellax, although I don't use my melee all that often, with Vampire Blade. I'll explain why in a second. And then I'm running the MP60R with abrasive rounds because I wanted to try it out and see how good it is. I think it's pretty solid overall, and I'm also rocking Twisting Wounds as that mutator as well. Now, as far as the build, there is a heavy bleed aspect to this, and I'm going to go over the reasons for that. First off, I am rocking the Indignant Fetish Amulet, which allows me to gain 20% damage dealt and 10% damage reduction from all sources as long as I am taking damage, and I'll explain why that works so well. First off, I am running the combo of the Blood Tinged Ring, the Atonement Fold, and the Hardcore Metal Band. These combine to make it permanent 5 stacks of Bulwark as well as permanent healing with the Blood Tinged Ring. Because I'm bleeding all the time, I'll always be within 25 meters of a bleeding entity, and then the Atonement Fold self-inflicts bleeding. So that allows me to essentially have permanent uptime on all that stuff, which I personally like because it doesn't take a lot of thought. I can essentially be spamming my abilities, spamming my mods, and not really have to worry about staying alive as much because of how tanky I can be with all that. I also add an Alchemy Stone. I could probably swap this out for a more damage dealing ring, but it increases base life steal by 6% while suffering from a negative status effect. You'll see my health jump up at times while I'm running my different abilities, well, especially when I use the Way of Keula, which does a chunk of damage, because you're going to see that I am inflicting that damage while I'm suffering from the status effect of bleeding, allowing me to do a bunch of damage while also healing at the same time. So I just like that combination. It feels like my survivability is through the roof. Even in content where you are just marching through enemies, you feel like you are incredibly tanky, which is awesome. Now, everything else I'm running, the traits are going to be 10 levels of Affliction, Fortified, Gifted, as well as Regrowth, Untouchable, Vigor, Barkskin, Revivalist, because I do run co-op quite a bit, Fitness, Expertise, as well as Spirit. Essentially, I'm going to go for max mod power generation as well as max skill cooldown, skill damage, all that kind of good stuff. I want to have my uptime on my skills as often as possible. Now, as far as the gameplay aspect of this, essentially what I have found myself doing is leading with the Miasma skill from the Ritualist and then using my Way of Keula, because once I use that, as long as that's active, you're going to see my Miasma really recharge super quickly, and I'll have it on cooldown pretty often, which is awesome. And then once I use those, that's when I'll follow up with my Sandstorm. I might use my Sandstorm secondly, just because once I start doing elemental damage with that, and then I use my Way of Keula, you'll see then I can just use my monolith on a bigger target to make them exposed, so that way they will take more damage, either exposed through the regular fire or the sandstorm, and they're going to take 15% additional damage because of that. And then you're going to see me swap over to my MP60R, where I'll use my abrasive rounds to do even more damage, inflict bleed, and get that bonus to damage on range weak spots, on bleeding targets, all that kind of good stuff. It just really synergizes very well, and is a pretty easy, straightforward build. I think there are other builds that might be a little bit better, more complicated, but this one, for me, really feels like I can take on any type of content. I can feel like I can take a bunch of adds at any given time. If I'm swarmed, I can survive a bunch of heavy damage, and that's partially what I like. Like I said, having the ability to play co-op with random players and not ever have to worry about survivability and about how much damage I'm doing and defeating certain bosses, all that kind of good stuff really feels nice, because oftentimes what I found is with other builds, I have to swap them depending on what I'm doing. And that can be a bit of a chore, especially when my main focus is looking for new stuff. I don't have to do that while I'm in Apocalypse difficulty. I could have done it in easier difficulties and been a bit quicker overall, but because of this build, I don't have to worry about that. I can join other people's games. I can go to certain locations, specific locations where I want to hunt for secrets and new stuff, and not really have to worry about I'm struggling with any types of enemies, whether they are abominations, whether they are major enemies or bosses, anything of the sort. And so again, that's why I like this. Plus, I also love using brand new stuff, which this build really focuses on. And I think for that reason, I'm a big fan. I will, at the end of the video, show everything so you can pause when I get to any part that you want to see specifically. But I hope you enjoyed the gameplay. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I've been loving Remnant 2. Let me know in the comments down below, though, what potentially underrated combos of archetypes do you think I should check out? I want to make new builds that I don't see elsewhere, and that's one of my favorite things to do in the game, is try different builds that aren't really run. So if there are any combinations that are either wildly OP but you just don't see anyone else talking about, or you think are just completely underrated, I would love to hear from you guys, so that way I can definitely make some more videos on some different types of builds, make them my own, try new things. But if there's any combos with the new archetype, with the new gear, with any of the new things that we have in the game, maybe the new traits as well, let me know in the comments down below so I can definitely work on that. I have some more builds that I'm working on, a Invoker engineer build that I think will be hilarious, and some other good things that I find absolutely a blast in this game. But anyway, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Helps me out tremendously, shows you want to see more Remnant 2 content from me going forward. Have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.